Welcome back to Xanahero's Forge. Today I'm going to be showing you how I paint a Salamanders Infernus Marine. The Infernus Marines are a new unit released inside the Leviathan 10th edition starter box and are perhaps one of the best units in the box to paint up as any chapter, excelling as Salamanders for the obvious flamers. To begin with, we're going to be base coating the armour panels with caliban green from Citadel, followed up by warpstone glow and highlighted with moot green, once again both by Citadel. You can see all models for my salamander schemes are undercoated with chaos black spray. So we're going to cut back once the caliban green is applied to the armour panels, and then we will move on to the warpstone glow. With the caliban green now applied, we can move on to applying warpstone glow to the same armour panels. We're going to do a quick pass of the miniature just to ensure you have left the 4 spots on the miniature that need to be left black for this colour scheme black. And those are the shoulders and the small vents on the armour panel backpack thing. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure what they're actually called. And obviously every other detail like the leather, the gun, the purity seals, the totally inconspicuous flamer, and the Aquila and the face mask have all been left black as well, as these will be metalics, or simply just highlighted with grey. Now we're going to move on to the warpstone glow, and we'll come back once that's done. With the warpstone glow now applied, we can move on to moot green. We can do another pass of the miniature again, so you can see just how much brighter and better this looks with the warpstone glow now applied. You can see I have still left all the areas untouched that aren't armour panels, and we will move on to them once we've done some small highlights with the moot green. We'll cut back once the moot green is done and move on to starting our metallics. With the moot green now applied, we can move on to our metallic details. And first off, we're going to do all our silver details using leadbelcher, followed by a highlight of revamped steel. The metallic details on this salamander scheme are quite small. There's very few to do. The Infernus Marines probably have the most out of the army, mainly due to the massive flamer. For our silver details, we're going to be doing the back part of the Infernus Marine's gun, this part here, up to here, as well as the handle. We're doing the canister for the flamer fuel, and the small vents on the backpack, as well as the ones in here. And that is it for silver details. As you can see, there's a bit of green on the mask there. You can tidy that up with armoured on black if you wish to, but it's very small, so unless on the camera like this, you probably won't even notice it on the tabletop. So we're going to come back once the metallic details are done, and then we'll move on to our flamer itself and start working on the brass details. With the silver details done on the gun, as you can see here, we're going to move on to the brass scorpion, and then we'll come back and do the shading for everything all at once. The brass scorpion is our brass colour of choice for the flamer, as I find it's a bit brighter and looks a lot better for the muzzle burn than the likes of, say, Balthazar Gold, which is what you'll see people use quite often, and I find that is very dark when shaded down, a little too dark. For example of how my muzzle flash looks with just the one shade paint, which is what we're going to be using today, which is Druchii Violet. Here's my Stern Guard Captain, not Captain, sorry, Sergeant. You can see I've done it there. It's very subtle, but it is there. A paint guide for the Stern Guard will be up shortly after this one as well. So we're going to move on to painting the flamer itself, literally just this part. And you could alternatively, instead of using a gold of your choice, which is what we'll be using in this paint guide, is any gold of your choice works for the Aquila. You could use the brass scorpion here as well. So we'll cut back once the gold is done as well. If anyone is curious, my choice of gold is this Rowney, I think I'm pronouncing that right, gold ink. It's very thin, it does take quite a few coats to stick, but it looks very nice, which was the gold you saw on the Stern Guard Sergeant just a second ago. So we'll cut back once these two metallics are done, and then we can move on to shading all the metallics. With all our metallics now done, we're going to move on to start to shade everything. We're going to do a quick pass of the miniature so you can see everything, and I've just put my hand in my still wet gold paint. Always remember to make sure your palette's dry before you put your hand near it, folks. Anyways, you can see I put a bit of gold on the gun just to brighten it up a bit more. We've got our brass scorpion on the end of the flamer. The Aquila's picked out in gold. We've got our leadbelcher details on the back here and on the vents. And that's about it for the Infernus Marines. Like I said, very few metallic details. So before you do anything with any other paint after metallics, make sure to change your paint water so you don't get any metallic flakes left in your paint. First shade paint we're going to be using is everyone's favourite hobby cheat, Nuln oil, and a paint you cannot convince me was not designed just to spill. And that will be going on to our leadbelcher details as well as our gold details. Mainly on the Aquila and the smaller part at the top of the gun here. This little skull down here is probably alright being left a bit brighter. Once that's done, we're going to move on to a bit of Mortarion grime on the silver details on the gun. Just a couple of splashes where you think it'll add a bit of flavour to your guns. Then we'll be using druchii violet on the front half of the flamer. Optionally, you can then go and add Drakenhof nightshade just behind that to give it even more of a burn effect, but I'm quite happy myself with just druchii violet. Especially if you want to get these out as quick as you can, just doing the one shade paint, it gets you where you need to be. Once those are done, we then only have the eyes left to do and the flame decorations on the gun. Which, well, optionally on the gun, I like to put a small one on the back here, just a small little flame detail, as well as anywhere else you choose to put them. And I'll show you how I paint them once we've done all the shading. Okay, with the shading of all the metallics now done, we can move on to the last bit of a Salamanders unit in my army, and that is the flame decals that all Salamanders seem to adorn their armour with. Now the colours I use for that are Mephiston Red, Wild Rider Red, Fire Dragon Bright, Uriel Yellow, and Flash Gits Yellow. Progressively using less and less paint as we get further up in brightness. So, we'll start with the Mephiston Red, move into the Wild Rider, Fire Dragon, Uriel, and Flash Gits in rather quick succession. I'm going to show you with the first three colours, and then we'll just cut to when the model's finished. So it's a very easy thing to do, and all you do is get a small amount of the paint. You don't need a massive amount, and pick where you're going to put the flame decal. In the case of all my Leviathan ones, I've been putting it on the little pauldron things, small cases above the vents on the packs. And we're just going to do very simple. I'll use a brush that's not splitting. That tends to help with these things. There we are, with a much better brush. We're just going to do some small flame decals, and I'm just going to arch it like that and bring it to a point like that. And then I'm going to put one by here as well, curving the opposite way so it curves towards the other flame. I'm going to put one at the centre of the backpack here as well, and this one's going to be a bit different. We're going to go with a small flame here, a bigger flame here. I'm just going to curve like that, and then another slightly bigger than the first one flame here. And that is all you need to do. You could do flames on both sides, but I'm just going to do it on the one for this paint guide. Once that's done, you can move on to the Wild Rider Red. And you're going to use less paint as we get in, as I said. So you want to leave some of the Fiston Red there still, at the top of the flames. That's what we're going to do. We're going to come in with this and just at the base of the flame put some of that Wild Rider Red. Gently fill it in. Even a bit of that Mephiston Red there. Do the same on all of these. You can see with just those two colours it starts to look good already. Next up is Fire Dragon Bright. You could miss this one optionally and just skip to Euro Yellow, but I think it looks nicer to have the 2 shades of orange and the 2 shades of yellow. Obviously again we're using even less of this again. You may end up having to go over twice with the Fire Dragon Bright, as it is probably one of the thinnest, if not the thinnest, Citadel layer paint. Once again we're using even less paint. Just barely put any paint on there. I'm going about halfway up the Wild Rider Red. There we go. Camera's refusing to focus. Yeah, you can somewhat see it. Now we can move on to the yellows. Might as well continue to show you all the way through. And then we can see what the finished model looks like. Moving on to the Euro Yellow. Again, you got about halfway up the last colour. If that. Now you can skip the flash kits yellow if you would prefer to, but it is there if you wish to have the yellow be a bit brighter. It does look alright with just the 4 colours, and I think for the Infernus Marines we'll leave it with just the 4 colours. And with that, our Infernus Marine is complete. All that's left to do is paint the base room and add a texture paint to the base. I hope you've enjoyed this paint guide, and I hope it helps inspire you to paint your own Infernus Space Marines from the Leviathan starter box.